So these two flight sim yokes are probably some of the most immersive flight sim peripherals that you can buy. And although they're in the upper tier of price, they both sit in their own category in price too. Now, before I go any further, this is not a Mark II review. This is a comparison between the CLS NG yoke and the CLS Mark II. So the CLS-E NG comes in at around $1,395 US, and the CSL-E Mark II yoke comes in at $2,178 US. Clearly, right at the get-go, these are in two different price brackets, with almost $800 of a difference. So let's go over what both yokes do, then we'll tackle the key differences. Both yokes will deliver convincing, and that can't be overstated, so convincing force feedback effects using pitch and roll axis. You'll feel the air resistance, pressure, turbulence, stick shaker effects, buffeting, autopilot and trim effects. Both yokes run from the same software called CLS-E, which is incredibly deep profiling software. So this is where the similarities start to end. And I guess the biggest difference is the physical design. You can clearly see there's a little bit of a size difference. Now I've mounted this up on some coasters just to elevate it from the desk so they will appear a little bit wobbly. While both yokes are full metal in design, the CLS-E NG yoke has a black painted finish to it, whilst the Mark II yoke has this absolutely stunning heavy brushed steel. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and it wasn't mine either until I got my hands on it, and I can tell you I absolutely love that high quality brushed steel finish. It's gorgeous. So as well as the upgraded materials, the size of the base is also different. It's bigger, obviously, or longer should I say. The width is comparable, but the length of the NG is 340 millimeters, whilst the Mark II is 440 millimeters. So an extra 10 centimeters in length. Now, there's a very good reason for that, and we'll get to that shortly. As we're still in the physical differences, we'll talk about the yoke wheel. Now, it does look the same on both yokes, but the material I think is different. It's almost like a softer, well look, this is quite a hard, high quality plastic. This feels like almost a hard rubber. It's actually quite hard to differentiate the both, but there's definitely something different about it. Overall, both yoke handles have a superb feel, but the Mark II yoke handle a smidgen nicer in the hands, just because of that softer touch. The buttons and the joystick on both are exactly the same. Also in the Mark II yoke, you'll see this little screen on the front there. I don't make much use of this, but you can use it as a timer. You can check your button presets and check out your forces that are being applied to the yoke in real time. This could be useful for some people, but as a hobbyist flight simmer, meaning I'm not training or a real pilot, I never found much use for it. The next difference, which isn't obvious from the outside, and it's one of the more important ones, is the power output. The NG yoke has 1.7 Newton meters of roll force with 40 newtons of pitch, and the Mark II, in complete contrast, has a whopping 6 Newton meters of roll force with 110 of pitch. You might be just thinking, all you're getting here is a stronger output, but that is not the whole picture. It's the fidelity and the resolution of the effects that are the main drawcard here. You see, with more power comes more range, and with more range, you're going to get that finer force feedback effects, and you can actually feel it. Now, this isn't to say that the NG is underpowered in any way. If you've seen my previous review of it, you'll know it does just fine in terms of power. But the extra fidelity you get with the more powerful Mark II yoke is superb. Next on the list is the range of motion. Now, both yokes have 90 degrees of roll, which is what you want. And while the NG yoke has 90 millimeters of pitch travel, the Mark II yoke has a crazy 160 millimeters of pitch. The 160 millimeters of pitch really is beautiful, and you're given so much more control over the elevator just by having it. I reckon there'll be some people that will purchase this just for the pitch travel alone. And just for a bit of context, a Cessna 172 has around 170 millimeters of pitch travel. So we're kind of getting close to what you might call real life. I think the length of the pitch travel in the Mach II is probably the #1 reason I would consider this yoke after having tested it out. However, the feeling of flying with both is amazing. And again, I did a full review of the NG yoke and the Mach II rudders on the channel not too long ago, so check those out if you're interested. That leads me to say that the returns on anything in this upper tier of electronics, it's going to start to diminish the higher you get. And that's a normal thing for any product line. For example, moving from the likes of, let's say, a honeycomb yoke to the Brunner NG yoke, that's a big leap. In fact, it's a huge leap. Completely different league. Taking that into consideration, the jump from the NG to the Mach II is smaller, but that again is defined by how much you value or how much value you put on that pitch travel and the extra fidelity of the Mach II. If you ever see any of Brunner's products at any shows or events, get in line for some hands-on experience. This is the only way to truly understand how great these yokes are.